This is the Veterinary Project Podcast, episode 108.
Welcome to the show created by vets featuring absolutely no pets. This is the Veterinary Project Podcast, hosted by Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Leicht. Our resident veterinarians have swapped out their stethoscopes in favor of microphones to bring you the Veterinary Project Podcast, a show focused on real conversations, aimed to connect this amazing profession full of remarkable people. Through the sharing of collective stories and wisdom, and connecting over the many unique challenges we face, we invite you to join our community of veterinary professionals leading intentional lives. And now, here are the hosts of the Veterinary Project Podcast, Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Leicht.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Another episode of the Veterinary Project Podcast. Returning guest, Dr. Gary Marshall this week for a quick catch up. As always, I mean, he is full of wisdom. So it was a great conversation.
I always notice we get going with the mic and our tone just calms down. We can get pretty excitable at times, and then it just smooths and the sailing happens and we have great conversation. Third one, and have enjoyed every one of them.
Yes. And he, after we turned record off, I think he mentioned actually while recording a few places, he'll be one of them, the Veterinary Innovation Conference. I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but
Summit.
Jonathan is considering going. So I'm putting him on the spot here. Gary kind of had said, hey, if you come, we'll get to meet in person. So I'm pushing Jonathan to go to this summit.
We talked about this on a previous podcast, the scheduling things that are my life right now. And if I can make that happen in the next 24 hours, it's on. I will be flying to Portland in 2 weeks. And the beauty about it is actually, I've been to Portland lots of times, love it. It's not my scene personally in terms of the place that, but there's so many cool spots. And for one night to be able to be in there with thought leaders, and I think leaders in our industry that are going to be guiding direction in veterinary medicine over the next 5 to 10 years. I'd like to be part of that. There's some very cool panels. Yeah.
I would love to make it to that conference. I'm on baby lockdown. I mean, it's not imminent, but we're not traveling anywhere in the near future waiting. So maybe that's a 2023 thing for me.
The cutoff has happened. Yeah, this one, because of COVID, it shut down the last 2 years, and it was on the docket for the last 2 years. So I go, okay, we need to make this happen. But there's lots happening in the world right now.
Okay. Well, before we dive in, anything else? What else is happening in the life of Jonathan?
You name it, it feels like it's happening right now, which is pretty awesome. Sometimes there are times where the world collides and you know that the direction that you're going in is the right one. I would say this one is the right time. Just a whole lot of just what would seem like disparate conversations, text messages out of the blue, and also structural pieces to our business. And that's on multiple fronts that though it is a lot of hours and there's a lot of time and commitments, it's a good place to be right now. That's my comment. Yeah.
So, okay, sorry, a tangent in the introduction. With Gary, we're diving in here around his Instagram post where he talks about, he's no longer exhausted and moving down to 3 days a week clinically. You are on the opposite end of that spectrum currently. Yeah. I would imagine if we were to add up the number of hours, it would be fairly significant. So, I mean, maybe speak to that a little bit, because we talk a lot about seasons of life. So as we get into this episode, we're going to see Gary in a season of his life, but here you are in a different season.
Absolutely. And I just look at it very briefly and say, hey, Jim Rohn's quote, the 4 seasons of life, and I'm in the spring season, and sometimes you'll jump from one to the other, and depending on the time. Right now I'm in the spring season. That says I've got to be on, and I've got to be on a lot for lots of responsibilities that are on my shoulders right now. And I'm completely fine with that, because I also love having this conversation with Gary today, where he is both setting an example for all of us, whether it's young or old, in terms of new to practice, decades in practice, or looking at retirement and future. And I go, my season will come in that end too. It's just not right now. So there's no envy there or jealousy there. It's just what it is. Just, again, I know that about myself. It's a great spot to be. So I love listening to it.
I like that. You are quite good at that. Just an observation from me. where, you know, it can sometimes be easy to look at someone and maybe compare, or like you said, envy that. You know where you're at, you know what you're working towards, you know sort of the situation you're in, and you embrace it. Like, you're always positive about it and ready to take it on.
It's my own choice. When I left ECA in 2019, I said I had that 6 months of semi-retirement. It was great, but guess what? It ended very quickly because I see opportunity and options to be able to lead in an industry that we love. Welcome to the world. My choice.
Nice. Okay, well, let's get on with the episode. Dr. Gary Marshall previously was a guest. He was on episode 73. So feel free to check him out there. You're going to love this conversation. So much wisdom. Dr. Gary Marshall. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. We have a former guest on the show, Dr. Gary Marshall. Gary, great to see you again.
Great to be back again.
It is. It's always, we've already been kind of chatting before we hit record here. Time just seems to disappear when I'm chatting with you.
It literally took us 30 seconds and we were right into old times again. And old times meaning we've only had 2 previous conversations with you, but it feels very comfortable. So thanks for doing it.
You're very warming. It's easy to warm up to you. I'm sure you've been told that before.
Well, I hope others feel the same way. I figure there's gonna be 3 groups. There's gonna be a group that's like, they just hear it start and they're gonna go, this is boring, and they're gonna turn it off. There's gonna be a group that says, go, Gary, this is great, we want to hear more of this. And there's gonna be a group that's like, this guy's kind of an asshole. Well, I don't know if we like where this is going. So we'll see how it ends up.
I find that last part hard to believe. I can't imagine there's many people that think you're an asshole, but whatever. They can turn it off. They don't need to listen. Okay, Gary, the reason for having you on, you recently put a post on social media. I think it was like September 9th or so. So within the last week, and it got a lot of attention. And even as I was scrolling, like, it stopped me kind of in my tracks. And it was just simply a photo that said, not being exhausted suits me. And then it got a lot of engagement and a lot of comments. And then I'm just going to read a quick part of the write-up for any listener that has not seen this post yet. And then we're going to dive into it. You started off by saying, I worked a lot of long days and a lot of days per week and took very few vacations for many, many years. Sometimes it was a necessity. Sometimes it was to fulfill a contract. Sometimes it was just because it was the way I was. I thought it was what I was supposed to do. Then you go on to say, there's a longer write-up, that now that you work 3 days a week, you know, you feel like you're a better vet, maybe have better relationships, and can see this extending your career. So we wanted to invite you on here to chat through this post particularly, you know, and talk about your career at times where maybe you felt exhausted, and how now not being exhausted catches so much attention in the veterinary space, which is kind of a shame. I really wish a post like this didn't get that much attention, to be honest, but I'll throw you in there and we'll go from there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that last sentiment, that it's too bad that it's kind of like, yeah, that gets your attention. But for me, coming to the point where it's like, oh, I want to write this, was because it was such a contrast from where I had been. And especially, you know, part of what you read in that write-up about some of it's out of necessity and because of a contract, and it's just the recent past 6 months ago, I was forced to work more than I wanted to work, just because no other veterinarians, and keep the clinic going that I didn't own anymore, and just doing what you had to do because that's what you signed up for. And now that I have, we have a full slate. We're back to a 3 veterinary practice, and they're great. And we've got just an amazing manager, and we've got a much more solid team than we did. You know, everybody had so much turnover during the pandemic, and now we're really, really solid, and we're just in a groove. I love coming in, and I mean, like I was telling Michael that I'm on vacation, but in here doing surgery today, just because it's like, yeah, that's fine. I'll do that and help out and get some stuff done. And it's not a big deal today because I'm rested, and I love interacting with the clients and my team. and my patience, because I'm not doing it 70 hours a week anymore. I'm just down to 30 hours a week.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that jumped out when we were setting this up. You said, well, it is my day off, but I am coming in to help a mentee with a surgery. And that kind of jumped out to me because I feel like sometimes when we discuss the word boundaries, people can get very rigid and be like, okay, here's a boundary. It's my day off. This is firm. And that's fine if that's your choice. But listening to you speak, there's a lot of like flexibility and fluidity, right, to this. Like when you're saying I'm rested, so I get to make these choices now. And now that it's my choice, I love it.
That's a super good point. I couldn't agree more. And I've never been very good at setting boundaries for myself. And even when I didn't need to be here as much, setting that boundary that says I'm not going to come in here more than 3 days a week, and you guys can handle it. And I knew they could, was really hard for me. Is like, are they going to think I'm a slacker? Or, are they not going to like me? Am I not going to make enough money because I'm not seeing enough? That kind of stuff. It all went through my mind. And again, that's another thing for in writing that post, that just being able to have time to go, oh, I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to go back in and do more procedures, or I'm going to sit and read a book, or I'm going to crank out a lot of these other projects that I haven't been able to do for a while, is awesome for me right now at this point in my life.
Nice. I'm curious, that when you said that, some of the thoughts that come up in your mind, I'm a slacker, they're not going to like me. How do you navigate those? And I mean, you have a lot of experience. So maybe even speaking to the veterinarians that are listening that don't have as much experience.
Ooh, yeah, that's good. You always have the best questions. So I think for me, it's having that permission to do that from the rest of the team as well. And that's my experience. That's probably not everybody's experience, because I know others, it's like, I just need a break. I need some time. And I really did do that, but it took away those feelings of I'm a slacker, they're not going to like me, because the team around me said, yeah, get out of here. You deserve it. You've been doing this for a long time. We got it. We know you'll be there. We have an agreement as far as when it's okay to get a hold of me, when it's not, what's okay to tell the clients, how long I'm going to be gone, if I'm on vacation, those types of things. And so having that, I guess for lack of a better term, contract or arrangement with the people that I'm doing it with, makes all the difference in the world for me.
Excellent. Mike, if I may jump in and just follow up question on that end, Gary, and really appreciate your honesty on especially those portions of sometimes that internal talk. When you look at the evolution over the last year, as you sold your company, you sold your clinic, you sold a great part of what you spent a lot of your life building, did you think that you would be at a point a year later where you'd be able to say or provide a post like you did? Mm-hmm. And if you were going towards that end, is there maybe some steps that you took to make that more possible for those that are also in this transition in their life?
Yeah. Well, I think I was hoping that I'd be able to write that post a lot earlier, but or that it wouldn't seem like it was that big of a difference. And I think you'll probably appreciate this, Jonathan, from your perspective, is that the part that sort of triggered that I'm not exhausted anymore was not the practice part of it, but was the practice owner part of it. And when, during the middle of the summer, at the end of the day, a staff member says, I think the air conditioner is pumping out heat instead of air conditioning. And it's like, not my job. I'll tell you who I usually call and walk out the door. And, it's not that crass, but those types of things, like you talked about, on your podcast, as far as who's going to fix the toilet and stuff like that, that's not me anymore. And that is just the biggest weight off my shoulders. And I get around to it. I think, how the hell did I do this for so long? The stuff that you have to do being a practice owner. So I think that part of it for me that may not resonate with the rest of a lot of your listeners is that practice ownership part of it. We think that it's just the grind of all the patient care, but that was really only a small part of it for me, because I like that. I love my clients. I love treating cats and stuff.
I really appreciate you sharing that. And that's a conversation we're having actually with a couple of individuals in clinics that we're looking to purchase right now in Mosaic Wing, and go, what do you love doing? What is the thing that brings you joy? My role, and every corporate's got their own differentiator, etc. But our job is to support that other end so you can be you. And some expect that to happen day one. It sounds like, again, that communication and trust that you had with the group that bought you and bought your clinic, I should say, in terms of that transition period, it's taken some time, but you've made it there.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest part of it. And I think, as you alluded to there, with a corporate structure, a corporation bought me, and having those people, you can tell that whether they're the on-site manager, the off-site manager, that's like, how do we engage with these people to make their lives better? Because if we can retain them instead of just cycle through them, it's going to be better for everybody all around. They're going to make more money. They're going to have more longer people. They're going to have more client retention, better care. And so it's a win-win-win.
Yeah, we saw that in some of your comments from the people that had posted comments on your post as well. This is fantastic.
Yeah. It's funny. I have personally never been a practice owner, but it is remarkable how many times I've heard a story similar to that, where it's all the little extra stuff that just keeps piling on outside of the actual like clinical veterinary work. And, that is whether that's lead to exhaustion or kind of the straw that breaks the back, right? And if you can peel that away, like you said, Jonathan, and do what you love and what brings you joy, it feels like you're rested. You feel less exhausted. Gary, I have, this is another unfair question for you, but I'm on the fly. I'm thinking of it here. One thing that I noticed, you said, you got permission from your staff and all the people around you. So there was great communication there, but because, you had been doing it a long time. What about it? What does that look like? And you and I and Jonathan talked in pre-recording. We have everyone listening to this podcast has different goals, some of which may include practice ownership, may not, and that's okay. What about someone that goal is, I want to get to this part-time work early in my career. I have no interest in practice ownership, and they have not been doing this a long time. So maybe they don't have that permission box checked, like as we described it. Any thoughts, like for newer veterinarians, that want to move to that without going through, decades, that is the traditional path?
Yeah. I think it can be that relationship. I don't think it has to be a longevity as far as I put in my dues and all that kind of stuff. Because I know young veterinarians that it's like this thing, like Jonathan was talking about, is a bigger priority for me right now. And to do that, I don't want to shirk my responsibility of what I've signed up for as a contract as a veterinarian, but I want to start that conversation to say, I love this, everything's great, but if I do this a little bit less, then I can take on this other thing. And and we've talked about that before with, everybody says, millennials don't want to work and all that kind of stuff. It's just, I think that they want to multitask way more than we did. And they're willing to take on juggle all these different balls at one time. And they're more honest with themselves to say that I can't do it all. So for me to accomplish these things, I have to let a little bit go of this other thing. And I don't know if they necessarily need permission, but it certainly works a lot better if everybody realizes that this is what we got to work with, and this is going to be better for everybody. If we, like Jonathan said, if we figure out what motivates them and how we can fit that in, whether it's 50 hours a week or whether it's 20 hours a week. And if everybody understands that going into it or as that transition occurs, I think it'll work out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a little like personal anecdote. I had peeled back to part-time. I'm a 2008 graduate. I think it was 2012. And speaking to some of the feelings you felt, I know I felt like guilt would be the one that jumped up for me, where I was like, wow, like, as you said, I'm a slacker, and those voices in my head. And for me, it was a clinic pivot. Like, I pivoted clinics and went to part-time. Like, so it was kind of a fresh start in that new role. But in 2012, you know, these kind of conversations weren't as prevalent. So, you know, seeing your post, that really landed for me, you know, a decade later. It was nice to see it.
Yeah, you were a trendsetter.
I guess a silent trendsetter, but
yeah.
It is, you know, I really liked what you said there, giving, I hate to paint the brush of the millennial, like, but more honest with yourself. Right. And, you know, it takes a lot of courage to do that reflection and say, you know what, this is what is right for me and works for me. And then communicate that with the team and then put it in action. You know, that's a much better frame on it than some of the negative, oh, they don't want to work.
Yeah. I'm sure Jonathan is living this really well, though. It certainly does impact our profession and for longevity purposes, whatever, if we all start working, you know, less hours, and population growth and you know, and pet ownership growth and stuff like that, it puts our profession in a bind for now. And hopefully we'll be better suited for the long run. I do not have an answer for that question on, we're all surviving a little bit better, but we're not taking as good a care, you know, the client's always right kind of attitude that we had before, and we'll bend over backwards no matter what, which was probably too far the other way. But that's going to be, that's a big shift. I don't know how we're going to answer that, but I think we're going to need 2 vets for every one that we used to have to make the system work. And I don't know where we're going to get them.
I'll jump in with my opinion on that. I think you're completely correct, Gary. Our industry is changing, and it's already molding. It's molding through technology. It's molding through the mobilization, utilization, verbiage of technologists, of technicians, of different ways of providing client producer care that we weren't able to do in yesteryears. And as a result of more individuals going to part-time care or part-time work, of less hours, of different lifestyles, etc., I think it's our responsibility as employers, but also as industry, being regulators, everybody that's involved, to be part of that solution, as opposed to just putting it on the employer. I'm an employer. I'm only one cog in the big wheel. And if the big wheel's not turning, we all lose. And we all lose. And I was chatting this with the other associate yesterday. We all lose also includes the veterinarian. It also includes the team in that clinic, because at the end of the day, we need to support our clients. That's what brings revenue into the practices. And if we don't have a business, or if we're not generating revenue and a profit at the end of the day, we don't have a business.
Yeah,
it's tough. It's a balance.
And we're going through that now, as far as, you know, just that pendulum swinging, or whatever you want to call it, or are catching up. And as you know, we're going to be better off if we are proactive instead of reactive. And so figuring out ways to get ahead of that. I hope it's not too late. I think.
I don't think it is. I'm an optimist, but I don't think it's even near too late, because we're having these conversations right now, and there are many people wanting to be solution orientated towards a future of veterinary medicine, as opposed to just giving it over to somebody that's doesn't have the same ends in mind.
Yeah. Sounds like it's time for another panel.
Ooh.
A panel discussion on that. That'd be good.
I like it. Mike?
We will get scheduling. Yes. I just have to have a consult with Rosalie to tell her, hold off on the baby's arrival till we can sneak a few more podcast recordings in.
October's a good month for birthdays, though. That's my birthday month. So
okay. Could be sharing a birthday.
That'd be awesome.
Nice. Gary, I am curious, at the end of your post, you just had a simple question there. how can I, or how are you doing? How can I help? And obviously I'm not looking for personal details here, but I would be curious, like, what kind of outreach did you get, silently? Because some people aren't comfortable posting, publicly and commenting publicly.
Yeah, most of it was just not, I haven't had anybody say, I'm really struggling with this or that. It was more just personally, hey, thanks for posting that. Good job. Hope you're doing well. Just on the more on, texting me or direct messages. Nobody's asked specifically like, how do I get from point A to point B? And I don't know that I'd be the one to help them with that completely, but I love helping people. I love meeting new people, and so I'm there if people have questions.
Excellent. Mike, I'm jumping in for a second. Totally off topic, but mentions, but along the same lines. The last time we spoke to you was at the start of the year here. Looking back at it 9 months later, do you feel through all of the different connections you have, conferences in person, and also the evolution of your personal life, do you feel that we're in a better spot compared to even early in the year with the conversations that are happening in veterinary medicine? Or not?
Boy,
Loaded question.
I think better spot is hard for me to answer on that, because I think certainly personally, yes. 100%, just because we have a staff, we have a structure in place. We're going back to we're not curbside, we're interacting with our clients, and so personally that it slows me down a lot, because I've been catching up with all my clients in the exam rooms, and so that's a little bit slower. We've got students every month now in the clinic, so personally that's great, and seeing all those things change from where they were a year ago, I think is definitely better. I think some of it, as far as wait times, getting used to things, certainly the costs have gone up both to the client and to us to provide the care. There's still a lot of clinics that are struggling to get support staff and veterinarians in. I think we're not in shock about those things as much as we were, and I think we're I think as a profession, I like to think we're more optimistic about where that's going to go, and how we've, like we talked about in January, how we're going to pivot to make it all work out. But I don't know about the overall big picture, but for me, it definitely is better.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Nice. So Gary, I am curious. I think I know part of the answer to this, but with your newfound time, I am seeing a lot more beautiful photography hitting your feed. But what are you filling your time with, I guess, with being out of the clinic?
Curling starts tomorrow.
I forgot you're an avid curler.
Yeah, curling league tomorrow. It's the first time. And then right after curling, I'm driving straight from curling. I'm going over to Pullman, Washington to visit with friends, talk to a couple student groups, and go to a football game, which now I can do that a little bit more casually over, a 4-day weekend instead of like packing it all into a 2-day weekend. And so looking forward to just getting away and doing more of those. I have a vacation home that I've been working on, and that's always fun to get away to. That's been new since the pandemic, and just doing projects there. It's a tiny little place that we're kind of redoing some things, but that's always fun too. And still involved in a lot of organizations through the next year or so that I've got commitments to boards and stuff. And I feel like I'm a little bit more, like we were talking about, proactive instead of reactive to, oh crud, I got a meeting tonight and I haven't been able to engage and get caught up on all the things that I need to do for that meeting. And I'm a little bit better at that now, not where I'd like to be. And so a lot of the same stuff, just not as panicked, not as urgency in all the in-betweens.
Nice. That's good to hear. Okay, Gary, I mean, it was great catching up with you. For those of you who are not already following you, or would like to see the post we're referencing, where would be a good spot for them to track you down?
Yeah, Instagram at It Might Get Weird with dots between the words. And love to engage there. I have a lot of fun on Instagram. That's the only social media I do. I only have enough bandwidth for one. And yeah, please do connect. Don't just follow, but connect. I'd love to get involved. I think this is going to go earlier. So in person, the Veterinary Innovation Summit. If you've never been to that one, you guys should go to that one. It's going to be in Portland, the 26th, 27th of September. So coming up quick. So be there in person, and then our Pacific Northwest conference later that same week here in Tacoma, Washington. If you're going to be in those areas, please find me. It'd be great.
Nice. Yeah. And I think we mentioned last time, you are a master connector. I can already see that. I could see you at a conference. You're the person standing and there's a group of people surrounding you. And it's like, you just know in the middle of that circle is Gary.
Well, I can't say that you're wrong.
Yes.
All right. Okay, well, thanks again, Gary. I mean, you are such a leader in the veterinary space. You're so humble. We love connecting with you. We're not going to run you through the impact round, but as always, we do like to end each episode with the final word going to our guests. So what message would you like to leave for the veterinary community?
Try to make this quick. One analogy I heard of the other day, and it just really resonated, is sort of thinking of a candle. You know, if you've got one candle and you're that candle, and you're worried about, for me, I'm getting old and that candle's going to burn out, right? But if you light somebody else's candle, it doesn't take anything away from the brightness or the flame of your candle. And if you can be involved in lighting a bunch of those, you can light up the night, and then those candles can keep burning long after I'm gone. And so want to think of that for the future for me, is just lighting a bunch of candles before I get done with this career.
Thank you for listening to the Veterinary Project Podcast. As a recap on behalf of our hosts, the Veterinary Project Podcast will be releasing new episodes weekly, so be sure to tune in as we bring you more conversations aimed at helping you enjoy a life well lived. If you enjoyed what you heard on the show and you want to stay in the know, please like, love, and or subscribe to the podcast on the listening platform of your choosing, as we're available on all the usual suspects. If you know of others that may benefit from these conversations, we'd love it if you please share the show with them, as this will help us grow our community to reach more and more veterinary professionals. Speaking of which, if you are a veterinary professional and would like to get connected with more like-minded individuals who are joining us on this journey, please send an email to the veterinaryprojectpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll invite you to be a part of our private Facebook group. General feedback, requests for information, or perhaps requests to be a guest on the show can also be sent to the veterinaryprojectpodcast@gmail.com. Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Leicht, thank you for listening to the show, and we'll catch you again next week for another episode of the Veterinary Project Podcast. Bye for now.